It's time to unite the League. This is your look at the DC Collectibles Justice League figure number 1, Batman. DC Collectibles is an award-winning line of collectibles directly from the source, DC Entertainment. The collection includes limited edition statues, action figures, prop replicas, and busts inspired by DC's iconic characters and stories. Based on unparalleled access to the source material, DC Collectibles delivers master designs and exceptional workmanship. For nearly 20 years, DC Collectibles' commitment to quality and authenticity has been recognized by DC fans worldwide. Before we sit down and have a look at the Cape Crusader just a little bit more closely, the first thing we're going to do is figure out how tall the figure stands. I acknowledge that these have probably been around for a while. Local comic book stores here in Canada are always notorious for getting stuff a little bit later. These have now started to pop up here in Canada, so I was able to pick up the first 4 figures. Batman stands at 6.8 inches in height. Not bad, not bad. And in centimeters, you're looking at the figure standing 17.4 centimeters tall. I figure we could probably do some size comparisons, so let's bring in the DC Collectibles Batman from the new Batman Adventures. This is the closest in proximity, I would say, to the Justice League one that we're going to be having a look at, sharing very similar costume elements, although there are things that do change. And also for some comparisons, we can bring in the Hardak. This is one of the later released Batman figures, also sporting new articulation in the knees, which unfortunately I hate to bring such bad news so early into this review. But the new Justice League Batman doesn't sport double knee articulation. And then also for some other comparisons, just for fun, we'll bring in the McFarlane Toys Batman. It's so much bigger. We'll just move over this one so you guys can actually see. He's a bit of a beast versus the rest of the Batmans. But just to bring him in so you guys can see some of the various different looks of Batmans from 2 different companies. So right out the gate, I'm a bit disappointed the fact that this particular Batman has nothing in the way of accessories. DC Collectibles, notorious it seems, especially when you look at the DC Essentials line, really gave little to no accessories for any of their figures. And they seem to have followed suit here with the Justice League release of Batman. He comes with absolutely nothing, and that's a bit sad. I suppose you could cheat. For example, I have, the Batman from New Batman Adventures. Sort of showing a bit of his age now, I have to admit. But I also have him with his zip line. Technically, even though it's not really supposed to be coming with the figure, you could technically remove the hand. Take the Batman from the Justice League release, and you can pop this off as well. The joint is just a little bit smaller, a little bit larger, the peg that is. But you can actually fit that into his hand. It's not really supposed to be in there, but again, if you do want to go the route of having something at least with this Batman, then yes, you could cheat. You could put that in there. I'll probably just likely display it. I mean, yeah, the hand is just a little bit bigger. I mean, if you compare the two, the new Batman Adventures hand, yes, is notably larger. But I think seeing it with the grapple line, you're probably not going to notice it. I guess that's cheating, though. He doesn't technically come with it. So we'll just go ahead and pop this back off. Put that back in place. So yeah, that's a bit of a shame. Why they couldn't have come with accessories is beyond me. You would have thought, if anything, that they would have come included with something. There we go. But unfortunately, this particular figure doesn't come with anything. And on top of that, I've already got one issue with this particular figure, is that you'll notice his leg. What's up with the leg? Yeah, unfortunately, his ankle is facing, it almost looks like he's got a broken ankle. The problem with it is the hinge joint is right over here. If you have Batman with the ankle joint this way, you'll notice that the boot is actually at the wrong place. It's supposed to be at the front. See the little point on this side? This boot, unfortunately, out of packaging, was assembled wrong. I suppose I probably could have gone in, fixed it, told nobody about it, and nobody would be any bit the wiser, but I did want to be honest about it. It's disappointing the fact that the boot, wasn't applied on correctly. I think I'm probably going to have to heat this, see if I can twist this, which is really tight on there. I'll see if I can loosen this, pop the foot off, switch it around or turn it around, line it up so the point is facing forward like this one, and then I'll have proper foot articulation the way it should be. This technically, if I just turn this around, this foot should really look like this. But who's going to be able to display a Batman like that? So unfortunately for the time being, I sort of have to do it looking like this, and it does make Batman look like he's got a broken ankle. Misaligned boots aside, I suppose it's not a bad-looking Batman, although I really have to admit, opening up the package to find no accessories to speak of is really inexcusable. Batman should have come with something. The big dead giveaway is also the fact that you can see one of his hands is in a gripping position. So it leads me to think that Batman should have come with something, and maybe they just left it off when it came to packaging. It's really disappointing the fact that he does have literally he's teasing you with a gripping hand that you can't do anything with. Despite that, the head sculpt is passable. One of the problems I tend to have when it comes to matte black figures is there's always these little areas that end up looking like there's fingerprints on it. It's something that I cannot remove. He has it on his cape, and he has it right above his head here. He's got this almost a semi-gloss black smudge. He's got it in a few places, actually, on his head. That does detract a bit from enjoying the look of the figure. I like the pointed ears. Of course, Justice League version of Batman would have longer ears than his new Batman Adventures counterpart. In fact, actually, let me just move this one to the side and bring in the new Batman Adventure so you can see the difference between the two. It keeps a lot of the consistency there. I mean, obviously, this one on this side has the longer ears. This one has a much broader jaw, and his mouth is notably higher up on the face, whereas this one doesn't have it. The color scheme, when looking at the two, I think I like the color scheme a little bit more on this Batman. This one comes across really quite pale, very pink, very off-white, very sick almost, it seems. I like in one way, at least, that they've given him almost a smirk on his face, so that's a nice touch. But yeah, the flesh tone that they decided to go with on Batman, I don't know if the camera's actually picking out, but in person, it feels like it's too purpley. Comes across very much a pinkish hue, the coloring that it shouldn't really be. If you flip up also the head too, clearly it looks like what they did do was they used flesh tone plastic and then they just colored over top of it with the black. That's what my guess is based on the fact that I'm seeing the undersection here. I don't really also know what's going on with this neck joint. If I move the joint aside, you probably can't see it that well on this side, there's also a blue peg on the interior of his neck. I don't really know why it had to be blue. I mean, they have, I'm sure, black pegs at their disposal. Why did they have to go blue in order to attach Batman's head? Certain ways you don't see it. I mean, obviously, if you just have him looking straight forward, you're probably not going to see it as much. But yeah, if you turn it just slightly to the side, he's got this blue peg. I get it. It's not something really to find fault with because you're probably not going to see it anyways. The Bat emblem is decent. There's a few little scratches, it seems, on the emblem itself. Nice broad utility belt. Again, if we just bring in the new Batman Adventures Batman, the utility belt does change back, giving you more like pockets without the flaps that the new Batman Adventures has. The Bat emblem is also quite considerably smaller. I do feel like the arms are probably carryovers. Well, maybe not. There's a bulge right around the joint of the elbow. This one doesn't have it, so probably not the exact same arm. But it does look like they may have used the same bicep joint. This side on this side here look like they're almost carbon copies to one another. Short of that, it doesn't seem like much else of anything else has changed. I did notice, though, on this one, I want to draw your attention again to Batman's crotch. Why am I drawing everyone's attention to Batman's crotch? He has a very small pair of bat underoos. If you look at the way the legs are hinged, for example, right here, I feel like the area of Batman's crotch, not drawing too much attention, I'm sure I already have, does seem like it's awfully small. Doesn't it seem a little small when you look at the proportions of it? I've noticed that actually with a lot of the newer DC collectible Batman figures. There's a whole bunch of them now on a yellow carding. And I've noticed all the same problems with those Batmans. They seem to have really small lower torsos. I'm not really sure why they did that. I'm sure most of this review so far comes across a bit negative, so we'll talk a little bit about the things that I do like about this figure. I like the head sculpt, even though I don't like the flesh tone that they used for his face. The eyes are nice, the ears are fitting and accurate to the way he looks in the cartoon. I like the broad cape that runs across his shoulders. This is a soft plastic, by the way. You can flip the cape up, and the interior of the cape is actually all painted a nice purplish blue. And they did actually finish everything on the back of the figure, even though technically the cape's going to be flapped over it. You're not going to see it. The utility belt is very cleanly painted. Yellow is always a difficult thing to paint. There are a few little flakes. Yes, you can see right there. A few little flakes where probably a little bit too much paint was applied. But at least I'd rather that than having the plastic colors starting to peek through, which tend to be the problem when it comes to the, of course, yellow. Yellow, if you don't apply a good enough coat of it, you often at times can see the coloring of the plastic on the interior. I do like the coloring. I do like the shape of his torso, I should say. I like that this one does have a rib cage at least defined on it, where the other Batman didn't actually have that. We can also continue to do some comparisons by bringing in the Hardak version of Batman. This is a good version of Batman, even though it doesn't technically have Batman's face. You can also see how the torso does change, a little bit more streamlined on the new Justice League release of Batman. The legs are still spindly, but this one has much thinner legs than Hardak's release. Going back again to Batman's crotch, yes, let's talk more about Batman's crotch. You see how further down Hardak's is right here. Justice League's Batman is way up there. Not really sure why they had to make it so short. Also, we can, of course, talk about the big problem I have with these figures is the fact that they didn't use the double hinge joints on the knees. The Hardak release and some of the later release Batman figures did all sport these. Unfortunately, the Justice Leagues are still relegated to single hinges, which you know what that means. Down the road, and I hope this not be the case, these legs are probably going to get loose just because there's not enough of it. The double hinge seems to keep those joints tight enough, keeps the legs tight enough and not develop looseness. Unfortunately, with single hinges, that's not necessarily the case. A lot of times these single hinged figure knees tend to get loose, and that seems to be the first thing. I'm really disappointed the fact that the ankle had to be facing the wrong way. Why, of all the ones that I grab at the comic book store, did I happen to grab the one that had the misaligned boot? Anyways, though, it's enough of me at least providing you guys a public service announcement to kind of keep an eye on this. If you pick this one up for yourself or pick up any one of these for yourself, just make sure that the boot is lined up in the proper place here. So looking at Batman's articulation, his head rotates all the way around, sitting on a ball joint after all. This allows the head to also hinge down, hinge up, and hinge back and forth, or pivot back and forth. For his shoulders are going to be, of course, limited. There's no way around that. Because he's got this rubber cape that goes over top the shoulders, it does limit some articulation, but you still could technically get almost a 90-degree angle bend on these. He has big hinge joints working in his favor. The arms move forward, the arms move back. He does have a bend in the elbow, which also allows that forearm to rotate all the way around if you want to. The hands also independently rotate back and forth and hinge. Just a shame, again, that this one, or both of them, didn't come with any accessories to speak of. For his waist, he does have a waist swivel. It's a little tighter on my figure, but he's got a waist swivel back and forth. Again, the very small back crotch. His legs hinge out, and you can also rotate the legs forward. You can rotate the legs back. He does have a single hinge in the knee. That's a bit disappointing. No articulation, of course, in the leg. And when it comes to his foot articulation, let's look at the one that actually is on right. His feet hinge up and down, and you can also rock them back and forth. Sort of on the fence with how I feel about this one. In some elements, it does things well. I like the sculpting of the head. I like the sculpting of the body. The paint is, for the most part, pretty decent, although I think it's not quite the right color for his lower face. But really the biggest problem with these figures is the fact that they toned down the amount of articulation points on these figures, being that they don't have a double hinge on the joints and the knees. And the problem with also Batman is the fact he doesn't have any accessories. They tease that they give you a hand to hold an accessory, and yet unfortunately the figure comes with squat. Getting skimped on accessories isn't new practice for DC Collectibles. I don't want to say necessarily it's just Justice League that's fault here. It's all the stuff that they've released in recent memory. Even the DC Essentials, if you remember all the ones we've looked at on this channel, very few of them actually came with accessories. The problem with it, the sting in all of this, is the fact that Batman has a gripping hand on this figure. He's teasing you the fact that he should have come with something, and yet, unfortunately, DC Collectibles left off accessories altogether. They also didn't give you any display stand, so in this case, especially because I have a warped foot on mine, I have to use another display stand just so I can get the Cape Crusader to actually stand. Now that's the negatives. The positives are, of course, it looks like a good-looking Batman. It looks like he's pulled from the cartoon. The colors are a little wonky when it comes to his face, but overall it's a decent-looking figure. It just has difficulties when it comes to the way he's constructed. I know these figures are slightly older, and they've been now re-released here in Canada stores, where before I think they were exclusives to stores, and I obviously didn't get a chance to pick them up before. So because of that, they're still using old body molds. They didn't use and incorporate double hinges in the knees. So unfortunately, none of these new Justice League figures that I'm getting here in Canada have double hinges in the knees. So you sort of know what that's going to mean. Down the road, I'm going to have loose legs on these figures. I'm really hoping that's not the case. I'm definitely going to have to see if I can do a little bit of surgical work on Batman's boots. I can't live with the fact that Batman has a crooked foot. I suppose I probably could just take it back to the local comic book store. Maybe I might just do that. See if I can get one that has a corrected foot. But I can't stand the idea of Batman not standing properly because his foot was incorrectly assembled at the assembly plant for DC Collectibles. It's all these things that sort of add up to why they couldn't have done a little bit better. I don't want to say they phoned it in, because it's still a decent-looking Batman, but he does fall short when it comes to additional articulation, additional accessories, and I just think overall the figure could have been a lot better than what he actually is. Despite that, though, I'm glad to finally be picking these ones up. I managed to pick up the Superman, the Flash, and Wonder Woman, still on the hunt for Green Lantern, Aquaman, and Martian Manhunter, and Hawkgirl, of course, as well. But let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of the DC Collectibles Justice League Batman. Have you picked up any of these? And let me know your thoughts down below. I was like reading your comments. If you're new to the channel and liking the content you're seeing, consider the idea of hitting that subscribe button down below. Turn the bell notification on, of course. And stay tuned to this channel. Keep in mind that Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when you'll find new videos popping up. And as I said, we're going to be having a look at The Flash, Superman, and Wonder Woman in upcoming reviews. So keep those peepers peeled, of course, as well. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.